Ginger Rogers finally breaks silence on Fred Astaire. Ginger Rogers was born Virginia Catherine McMath on July 16, 1911 in Independence, Missouri. Her journey from a spirited young girl growing up in the American Midwest to an internationally celebrated actress, dancer, and singer is a story woven with resilience, passion, and remarkably erratic talent. Raised largely by her strong-willed and resourceful mother, Ella Owens Rogers, who would later become her manager, Ginger grew up in an environment that encouraged creativity and independence. It was in this nurturing atmosphere that discovered her love for dance, vaudeville, and later film, planting the seeds of a career that would span more than 5 decades. Her rise to fame began in the roaring 1920 seconds, when she won a Charleston dance competition at just 14 years old. That victory opened the doors to vaudeville touring companies and later Broadway, where she captivated audiences with her natural comedic timing and vibrant stage presence. Hollywood soon called, and by the early 1930s, Ginger had transitioned into film, quickly becoming one of Roca Pictures' brightest young stars. Her breakthrough came when she was paired with a young dancer named Fred Astaire in the 1933 film Flying Down to Rio. What began as a single supporting role blossomed into one of the most iconic cinematic partnerships in history. Together, Ginger and Fred transformed the movie musical, blending elegant choreography with emotional storytelling. There are 10 films, among them classics like Top Hat, 1935, Swing Time, 1936, and Shall We Dance, 1937, are remembered not only for their dazzling artistry, but for the magical chemistry that made them timeless. Yet, Ginger Rogers was far more than Fred Astaire's dance partner. Determined to prove her dramatic range, she pursued roles that showcased her depth as an actress. Her performance in Kitty Foyle 1940, in which she played a working-class woman struggling with love, ambition, and societal expectations, earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. This achievement cemented her reputation as a performer of extraordinary emotional insight. Over the following decades, she continued to shine in an astonishing array of roles, from comedies and musicals to dramas, radio programs, stage plays, and television appearances, demonstrating again and again that she could adapt to any genre with grace and intelligence. Beyond the screen, Ginger was admired for her down-to-earth, charming, unwavering work ethic. She carried herself with quiet dignity, valuing her independence at a time when women in Hollywood were often overshadowed by the studios that controlled them. Friends and colleagues frequently described her as warm, generous, and fiercely devoted to her craft. Despite her immense fame, she remained humble, often crediting her success to teamwork, perseverance, and gratitude for the opportunities life had given her. These qualities endeared her to audiences around the world, making her not only a beloved entertainer, but a symbol of classic American glamour and tenacity. Ginger Rogers' personal life was marked by a series of relationships that reflected both the intensity of her career and the complexity of her private world. Over the course of her life, Rogers married and divorced 5 times, each union revealing a different chapter of her evolution as a woman navigating fame, love, and personal fulfillment. Despite her many marriages and close relationships, Rogers never had children, a fact that later led her to speak openly about the trade-offs she made for her career and the demanding pace of Hollywood life. Her first marriage came on March 29, 1929, when she was just 17 years old, an age when most young women were still finding their footing. But Rogers was already a rising star with a fiercely independent spirit. She married her dancing partner Jack Pepper, born Edward Jackson Culpepper, whom she had met while performing on the vaudeville circuit. Their partnership had a youthful spark and an energetic camaraderie, but the pressures of travel, performing, and her rapidly changing ambitions created tension almost immediately. Although the marriage technically lasted until 1931, they separated soon after the wedding, and by the time Rogers' career began accelerating, their relationship had already faded into the background. Following her divorce, Rogers entered a brief but meaningful relations with Hollywood director and producer Mavin Loy in 1932. Their romance unfolded at a pivotal moment in her budding film career. But despite the mutual affection between them, the relationship did not develop into a long-term commitment. Still, their bond left a lasting impression. The two remained close friends for more than 5 decades, maintaining a rare and enduring connection that survived the shifting tides of Hollywood until Loy's death in 1987. In 1934, Rogers entered her second marriage, this time with actor Lou Ayres. Ayres, already well known for his role in All Quiet on the Western Front, shared Rogers' familiarity with the pressures of stardom, and their marriage initially seemed promising. However, as their careers pulled them in different directions, and their personnel priorities shifted, the relationship really unraveled. After 6 years together, they divorced in 1940, closing another deeply formative chapter in Rogers' life. Her third marriage began in 1943 during the height of World War II, when she wed Jack Briggs, a U.S. Marine whose military discipline and grounded personality offered a stark contrast to the whirlwind of Hollywood. Their marriage was marked by long separations, due to Briggs's service and the demands of Rogers' work on screen. Although there was genuine affection between them, the challenges proved too great, and they eventually divorced in 1950. In 1953, Rogers married for the 4th time, entering a highly publicized union with Jacques Bercerac, a charming French actor, who was 16 years her junior. Rogers met Bercerac during a visit to Paris, where his sophistication and European refinement captivated her. Before pursuing acting, Bercerac had been a lawyer in France, but after their marriage, he relocated to Hollywood with Rogers and transitioned into an entertainment career. Although their relationship had an exciting beginning and brought a cosmopolitan flair to Rogers' life, it was not destined to last. They divorced in 1956, marking the end of one of her most glamorous partners. Her 5th and final marriage came in 1961, when she wed director and producer William Marshall. Their relationship began with creative compromise as they collaborated on film projects and attempted to build business ventures together, including a production company in Jamaica. Unfortunately, the pressures of the industry combined with Marshall's struggles with alcohol and the ultimate financial collapse of their company placed immense strain on their marriage. After nearly a decade together, they divorced in 1970, bringing Rogers' long journey through love and marriage to its conclusion. For decades, fans, film historians, and dance enthusiasts had speculated endlessly about the true nature of the relationship between Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, the legendary screen duo who dazzled audiences through the 1930s and won 9 for OS with their effortless grace and seemingly magical chemistry. Although Rogers had spoken warmly about her throughout her life, she rarely offered the kind of deeply personal behind-the-scenes reflections that fans longed to hear. But in a rare, candid moment later in her life, Rogers finally decided to open up and share a more detailed, heartfelt account of what it was really like to work alongside the man who helped define her career and whom she helped elevate to mythical Hollywood status. Rogers began by dispelling one of the most persistent myths, that she and Astaire were distant or cool toward one another. People always assumed Fred and I were polytestringers who came together only when the camera rolled, she explained. But that was never true. We had a deep respect for each other, even on the days when we disagreed or challenged one another creatively. According to Rogers, their partnership thrived not because they were identical, but because they pushed each other to be better every single day. Fred had this laser-focused perfection, she said, and I had a stubborn streak that matched his. When those qualities collided, sparks flew. Not the kind people imagine, but the kind that make art come alive. She described the grueling rehearsals that often stretched for hours, long after other performers would have called it a day. Astaire was famous for insisting on countless takes until he was satisfied, and Rogers admitted that at times, it could be exhausting. There were moments when I thought my feet simply could not take another step, she recalled, but then Fred would look at Me with that quiet determination office. And I'd find the strength to keep going. He never asked for anything. He wasn't willing to give himself. Their mutual dedication, she emphasized, was the reason their dance numbers became timeless works of cinematic art, studied and admired long after the era of black and white musicals had passed. Rogers also acknowledged the emotional complexity of their partnership, which was often romanticized by the public. People wanted to believe we were in love, she said, and, in a way, we were, just not in the way they imagine. We shared a creative love. A trust that allowed us to move, as if we shared one heartbeat. That kind of connection is rare, and I will always cherish it. While the two remained friends off-screen, Rogers noted that their personal lives followed different paths, making the ideal of a real-life romance impossible. Yet, she never resented the fantasy that surrounded them. Instead, she understood it as a tribute to the power of theater performances. Reflecting on their years together, Rogers expressed gratitude rather than nostalgia. Fred taught me discipline, finesse, and patience, she said, and I like to think he gave him strength, humor, and maybe a bit of daring. She emphasized that contrary to the assumption that Astaire guided every creative decision, their partnership was deeply collaborative. I wasn't just following Fred's lead, she asserted. I contributed ideas, steps, timing, everything. And he respected that, more than most people ever realized. In her final thoughts, Rogers offered a sentiment that encapsulated the uniqueness of their bond. We were very different people, she said, but together, we created something neither of us could have achieved alone. Fred was my partner, lecturer, Willinger, and my friend, and I will forever be grateful for every step witnessed. Through these rare, reflective words, Ginger Rogers finally gave fans the intimate portrait they had always hoped for. A portrait not of Hollywood legends, but of two artists who found greatness in one another. Ginger Rogers eventually settled into a lifestyle that reflected both her love of tranquility and her desire to remain close to the places that had shaped her. In her latter years, she divided her time between twokerished homes that offered her very different emotional landscapes. During the winter months, she resided in the warm, sun-drenched community of Rancho Mirage, California, a desert oasis known for its peaceful atmosphere, mountain vistas, and reputation as a retreat for Hollywood legends seeking privacy and comfort. Rogers found that the serene desert environment suited her perfectly. It provided her a space where she could relax, reflect on her long career, and enjoy a slower pace of life surrounded by natural beauty and a close circle of friends. When the seasons changed, Rogers would leave the California desert and spend her summers in Medford, Oregon, a place she deeply adored. Medford offered a completely different kind of charm. Lush greenery, cool breezes, and a sense of small-town warmth that reminded her of the values grew up with. She owned a rank property there, where she often welcomed Midwests, hosted community events, and took pleasure in the simpler joys of country living. The contrast between Hurtwoe homes, one a polished desert retreat, the other a peaceful Pacific Northwest haven, reflected her multifaceted personality and the balance sought between glamour and groundedness. Rogers spent her final years moving gracefully between the spell-of locations until her life came to a close. On April 25, 1995, in the comfort of her Rancho Mirage home, she died from a heart attack at the age of 83. The news of her passing resonated deeply across the entertainment world as generations of fans and colleagues mourned the loss of a woman whose elegance, talent, and resilience had helped define an era of film and dance. Honoring her wishes, Ginger Rogers was cremated and her ashes were placed in their final resting place beside the person who had been her greatest source of strength from the very beginning. Her mother, Lila Mean Owens, Ela, who had fiercely supported Rogers throughout her career, served as her manager, confidant, and constant champion. The two were laid to rest together at Oakwood Memorial Park Cemetery in Chatsworth, California, a serene cemetery known for its beautiful grounds and as the final home of many Hollywood icons. Their interment side by side symbolized a lifelong bond, that shaped Rogers' journey from a determined young performer to one of the most celebrated stars of the golden age of Hollywood.